Black Hills Information Security, the leaders in penetration testing and active defense. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to request a quote today. Threat Connect is the industry's most widely adopted threat intelligence platform, built to unite the people, processes, and technologies across your security team, your organization, and your entire ecosystem of partners. Threat Connect's threat intelligence platform enables your team to collaborate, analyze, and make sense of threat data all in one place. Empower your team towards fast and efficient analysis that leads to decisive action. Transform your entire threat detection and response program today. Claim your free account at threatconnect.com/securityweekly. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries and enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge of the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries at the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame, automate the hunt. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. This is our technical segment for this evening. We're going to talk about Outlook Web Access two-factor authentication bypass as discovered by Black Hills Information Security researcher Bo Bullock. This one is interesting. Quick, like TLDR or too long I didn't listen, something like that. Basically, Outlook Web Access, if it's set up for two-factor authentication, there are methods in which if you have the username and password for a particular account, you can bypass two-factor authentication and log in as that user and gain access to all of their emails and associated information that's available to you when you log in through the Outlook OWA, I should say. Now, a lot of drama surrounding this. A lot of interesting things surrounding this. There has to be some certain things in place. One is, obviously, you have to have two-factor authentication enabled. This was tested with Duo two-factor authentication. Duo, from what I understand...
So wait, if two-factor authentication isn't enabled, then they're not vulnerable to this?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I will ask that of the BHIS team, if anyone's listening. Joff is on an airplane, Bo couldn't make it, and John is MIA. So our BHIS resources were not available to us for this segment. Greg, do you know the answer to that? Do you know if this particular exploit, is it just exploiting the EWS or Exchange Web Services, right?
I believe so, yeah. So that's the same way we were using to pull in logs using message tracking. So essentially, it looks like it's doing the same sort of thing. We were messing around with this using a Mail Sniper, which is another BHIS tool.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so my answer to your question, Jeff, is yes, unless someone from BHIS corrects me, that if two-factor authentication is not enabled, if you have the user's credentialed, you can log in via EWS, which... I don't know if that lets you bypass anything else. Like, as is the case for WordPress, if you have controls around the web interface for logging into WordPress, but the API is open, the API lets you just brute force till the cows come home. I'm not sure if the same holds true, and Greg, I'm not sure if you know for EWS, if security controls to the user accounts and the login process apply to EWS, because it's kind of like is it like an API connection? Or do still the same password rules apply?
I believe it's more like an API connection.
Yeah.
And from what I understand about that, that's part of how you maintain connections using like the Outlook Thick client and things like that as well.
For OS 10, that's how the fat client connects in OS 10.
Right. But I could be mistaken. I don't know too much about it, to be honest.
I did read where that this is the EWS is the same thing that Outlook for OS 10 works, and God help you if you have to use that. Thank God I don't have to use that anymore. I did have to use that in a previous life. Thank God I never have to use that ever again. In any case, two-factor authentication was enabled with Duo Security, but it's not a vulnerability in Duo Security's product. And I think Duo was kind of... not friendly fire, but collateral damage, I should say, in this particular case. But not really, because there was really no damage. The vulnerability is really just bypassing really any two-factor authentication, although it is a problem with Microsoft Exchange Server and Exchange Web Services interface being unprotected by two-factor authentication. Some will say that this is a well-known thing. There was a lot of communication with Microsoft. Basically, this is built into the foundation of the product, and they'd have to really re-architect the way the product operates in order to protect against this vulnerability. I guess you're safer if you don't have two-factor authentication. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Paul, unfortunately, so I was at Hackfest when John was talking about this just last week, and unfortunately, so much time has gone under the bridge. So much water has gone under the bridge since then. I don't remember all the details.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of those things that, they were. From what I heard from John, they were saying that it was more product feature than bug, and it was all up to the customer to solve the damn problem.
Correct. Yeah, because it looks like if you use portions of detailing a bypass against Office 365 multi-factor authentication, and it does indeed appear to not. We need to get some editing on these blog posts. It does not work with Office 365 multi-factor authentication. So that, I guess you're safe if you're using Office 365 multi-factor authentication in this case. Greg, tell us a little bit about Mail Sniper. We probably should have Bo on the show to talk about it as well, but it sounds like you've used that tool before as well.
Oh, definitely. I don't know if I can do it justice, but it's a very cool tool from both a pen testing perspective and a incident response perspective. This is something we played around with a bit following the hackathon project, because that was about a month or two ago that we finished the hackathon project right before Mail Sniper came out. And when I saw Mail Sniper, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So we actually started playing around with that and using it in a defensive way to go back and find the full contents of all the messages that were possibly marked as phishing attacks. And so that was something we actually used Mail Sniper because Bo did all the work for us, which was great, because I'm terrible at PowerShell. And so I actually used that to go and pull the contents of the message out, and then we wrote some regex to parse links out and things like that on top of it. But Mail Sniper is a fantastic tool, especially if you're a pen tester. By default, if you run this at an Exchange environment and you have credentials, or you're able to impersonate credentials and gain access to some of these messages, you can go and scrape someone's mailbox for credentials possibly being sent in plain text and all sorts of other really interesting information that could very much help out on a penetration test.
And Mail Sniper was primarily developed for internal penetration testing. So, like, I'm on the network, I've gathered credentials, and now I want to see what I can get from that person's email, and that's why Bo developed Mail Sniper, and then he started to configure that to do like remote stuff as well over the internet using OWA, and that's when they started doing research into the two-factor authentication bypass. So, Larry or anyone else on the panel, do you want to share your thoughts and experiences with this particular article? It did get picked up by Threat Post as well, so it has been getting some press. It is a valid way to bypass two-factor authentication.
Yeah, I wish I did. I was looking for the slides that John used at Hackfest, and like they weren't readily accessible and not easily found and all that stuff. I've been looking for them since last night and still can't find them. But the slides are out there for the Pentest Hackfest from SANS 2016 that just finished yesterday. So the slides are out there and has the discussion from John.
I guess I'd be interested in anyone's perspective on the whole idea that, you mentioned this is more of it's not a bug as much of a feature.
Yes.
And that is, in terms of it being developed for pen testing, when it's a feature, when it comes down to a pen test, and it's essentially you as a pen tester know something that your customer doesn't about the functionality of whatever it is that you're targeting. I'd be interested in anyone's perspective on, when do you simply tell the customer, hey, you're using this thing and it's got these issues, it's not well known. but it's got these issues versus, ooh, this is my little bag of tricks way of getting in and raping and pillaging and popping boxes and pivoting, which is what I've been paid to do anyway.
I think, Jeff, for me, it's a matter of priority for the defender. And when you're defending an enterprise network, you have to make decisions about what you're going to lock down and what may not be a priority. And I think with all of
the defender being assuming the defender is the customer?
The defender is the customer in this case, correct.
Okay.
And the way I see it is there's a lot of things that I could go lock down and secure, but I'm going to make my own list of priorities, and I'm going to talk with the business and see what's a priority to the business and see what I can do with my team, and I'm going to do the best that I can. And where I think the value and we have so much technology to secure that there's always going to be stuff that I know that I'm not going to get to. And I'm hoping as a defender that the stuff I know I'm not getting to is not the stuff that can cause real issues. And what I see the number one value in a penetration test is basically validating my priority of remediation and picking on things and saying, yeah, this may not have seemed like an issue, but when it's combined like here, there, and the way you've got your security structured, like that's really an issue. Like I have to enable some of these features that lead to this bug because I have Mac users, and therefore it allows people to bypass two-factor authentication. So that's an issue. I may have prioritized that low, but coupled with maybe some other vulnerabilities and information leakage, that could be a big deal to me. And now after the penetration test, I have to readjust some of my priorities. And I think that pen tests offer that constant readjusting of your defensive priorities.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
We had sort of a two-pronged approach to that, which was we had what we call active assessment and then versus passive assessment. And active assessment was looking for what are you doing and where are the holes. Passive was, can we tell you about things you shouldn't do that you may not even be doing now, and which to me this falls into. So you're not using two-factor authentication, but we don't want to get in a jam with the company and them turning around and saying, well, you never told us we shouldn't turn this on. We turned it on a day after you left. And then you end up in this liability situation. So we kind of divided those contracts into active and passive because we also had the problem of if you do start getting in the weeds and you start pulling down all kinds of stuff, because you always do that when you're doing audit and pen testing, where you know about things, you're going, oh, that's exciting, I like that. But the company says, we don't want to pay you for all these hours where you're just telling us about stuff that might have been, but they'll turn that around on you. The other comment I had about this was sometimes that the business of is this a feature or is it a bug is a legal sounding thing to me, where I've heard that a company kind of going, well, it's a feature, it's up to you to determine if it's risky or not. That sounds like something from legal, saying we're not responsible for this crap. Yeah, we made it, but it's up to you to decide if it's valid or not. So that was sort of my two comments about this.
Yeah, and I think playing off of that, Doug, this underscores a really important point. Is this attack, for example, has you need as a requirement the user's login information, credentials, their username and their password, or be able to impersonate them somehow in the Windows environment. I think if we back up when we had Josh Abram on the show, and he talked about the methods in which they were able, across 100 pen tests, 75 customers, to break into an organization and be able to compromise that integrity and all the data within the organization, that the majority of the top 5 or top 10 attacks were related to credentials. And I think when we look at the issue that Jeff, I think rightfully so, brought up is, what do we advise companies do that we really shouldn't have to test for? Like, is there stuff we can just tell them? It covers this attack. You may not even have to talk about two-factor authentication. You need to talk about how they can secure the authorization of their users and the way that it's handled in a Windows environment, and not letting an attacker get at people's usernames and passwords, or having users with weak passwords or default passwords. That is really the number one thing that enables a lot of these other attacks to occur. And I think that if there's one thing that I pulled from this year that really helped me shape my recommendations for organizations, especially in Windows environments, to be able to lock down their credentials is like the most important thing to eliminate those, really the primary ways in which attackers and penetration testers are getting into organizations and doing real damage.
And, we always tried to frame that in the context of what I call layer problems. Because one of the things we saw early on when we were doing attacks and things was being able to go underneath layer 7. And somebody mentioned it just a little while ago about, as these environments have expanded from being local environments, which was the assumption of developers, into this global environment, all of a sudden there's a lot more risk because now you've got, people, you don't know where your network extends to. And the assumption was, oh, this is an exchange environment. It's in this little bubble that's located at 2405 57th Street. And now all of a sudden that bubble's been expanded with VPNs and all other kind of connectivity. And so now you've got that layering problem again, where people can come in under the radar running at raw IP and all kinds of tricks like that we used to use. And so I think there's several issues in there that are embedded, but I always call those layering problems because we used to go underneath Oracle all the time and you just come in at a raw IP and you could get away with all kinds of stuff. And that's where those credentials are laying too. And the assumption was, layer 7 is going to keep users from getting those credentials. But layer 3, they're just wide open.
Right. I think that's a good point to take a break. I want to encourage everyone to go to blackhillsinfosec.com, read their blog where Bo details this attack, and other ones. Mail Sniper is on there too as well. So go check that out. Security news stories for this week coming up.